I'm gonna be transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and when no one had even seen it. And that's when we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. I would challenge us all and challenge myself to continue questioning what it is that I digest, and think critically about what shapes it. And let's vote, y'all. Let's vote.
Just how deep does the Hollywood bubble go? Amandla Stenberg recently opened up about the cancellation of The Acolyte, but what she revealed goes far beyond the show itself. In her raw 8-minute video, she unintentionally exposes the Hollywood cult mentality, where criticism morphs into hate and blame is shifted onto algorithms and echo chambers. But is that the real reason behind The Acolyte's downfall? And could this mindset explain why Hollywood continues to fail its audiences? Before we dive deeper, if you're new here and enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Stick around as we explore what Amandla said, why it's raising eyebrows, and what this means for Star Wars and beyond. Just when we thought the conversation around Star Wars The Acolyte had finally settled, Amandla Stenberg brought it back into the spotlight with her 8-minute video posted on August 28th. In this candid take on the recent cancellation of The Acolyte, she accidentally revealed just how restrictive the Hollywood and Lucasfilm echo chambers can be. Let's break down what she disclosed and why it's so telling. In the video shared on X, formerly Twitter, Stenberg directly addressed the series' cancellation. Interestingly, her tone was much softer compared to the diss track she previously released against the show's critics. Still, the underlying emotions remained consistent. She expressed gratitude toward Leslie Headland and Lucasfilm for the opportunity, clearly showing her appreciation. However, amidst all that, there was also a lingering sadness, a sense of loss that many of us can understand. After all, being cast in a major role in a Star Wars series should have been a significant career milestone for her. It could have secured her success for years to come. But with the show now axed, the future of her character is entirely uncertain. Whether she will ever return to that role, and if so, when or where, remains a mystery. It's a huge setback for her, and that's not easy to cope with. But here's where it gets interesting. Who does she believe is responsible for the show's downfall? Stenberg's words suggest she might be living in a bubble, disconnected from a broader reality. Keep that in mind, as it's a key point we'll explore further. While there was clear negativity surrounding the show, much of it was directed at the very idea of The Acolyte, with some aimed at showrunner Leslie Headland. Many fans were skeptical from the start, and one could argue their concerns were justified since the final product didn't quite meet expectations. Stenberg's perspective on this criticism, however, seems to come from a more personal place. She also addressed the backlash she faced after being cast in The Acolyte, referring to the alleged hate she received online. As Amandla Stenberg discusses the backlash, it becomes evident that she views the world through a specific lens, one where skepticism and criticism about The Acolyte are perceived as personal attacks. From her perspective, these criticisms are rooted in hate directed at her, which reflects how she interprets the world around her. It's important to note that there's little to no public evidence of this supposed wave of hatred aimed at her on social media. Yet her view remains unchanged, suggesting that she perceives any negativity or doubt toward the project as a personal affront. This perception might explain some of the previous statements Stenberg has made. After all, The Acolyte was never intended to be the Star Wars that longtime fans were hoping for, and skepticism was present right from the start. But Stenberg's personal interpretation of that criticism adds an additional layer of complexity to the situation. Fast forwarding a bit, she thanks the show's fans while also making it clear who she believes the real critics of The Acolyte are. According to Stenberg, it wasn't the general audience or Star Wars fans upset with how the franchise was being handled, it was the alt-right. She attributed the criticism not to widespread discontent among regular viewers, but to a specific political faction. This leads us into a deeper conversation about Hollywood's mindset when it comes to handling projects centered around diversity, equity. From her point of view, the rejection of The Acolyte wasn't just about the show itself, but was part of a broader ideological divide. Stenberg's comments were quite revealing for two main reasons. First, she openly acknowledges her awareness of operating within an echo chamber, one that may shape her understanding of the world. Second, she projects that belief onto others, assuming that everyone, including the critics, is also trapped in their own echo chambers. While there's some truth to the idea that people often exist in echo chambers, this mentality not only shapes how Stenberg views the world, but also how she rationalizes the criticism directed at the series. However, for Amandla, the issue isn't just that she's trapped in an echo chamber, it goes deeper than that. She's also living in a bubble. This bubble acts as a barrier where critical thinking can be shut down by blaming external forces such as algorithms. Essentially, it becomes a convenient way to explain away any backlash or criticism without genuinely examining the root cause. We've seen this before with Kevin Smith, another figure in Hollywood who found himself in a similar situation with his project Masters of the Universe Revelation. When Masters of the Universe Revelation faced widespread criticism, Kevin Smith initially seemed to understand the gravity of the backlash from fans. However, someone within the Hollywood bubble intervened, convincing him that the negative response wasn't a genuine reflection of the audience's feelings, but rather the result of algorithms pushing negative content. This allowed him to ignore the real feedback and dismiss the criticism altogether. To further illustrate this point, let's reflect on our previous coverage from December 2nd, 2021, where we discussed how Kevin Smith rationalized the backlash over Masters of the Universe Revelation. At that time, it was clear that the backlash had caught Kevin Smith completely off guard. Instead of taking a moment for introspection and perhaps realizing where things went wrong with the series, Smith seemed to bypass the opportunity for any real self-reflection. He didn't ask himself what lessons could be learned or how to improve moving forward. In a telling moment, Smith shared what happened during his intervention. He mentioned that someone advised him to stop paying attention to the negative feedback altogether. According to them, it wasn't about the fans' real opinions. Smith was told that the negative comments were simply a result of algorithms driving negativity and he should just focus on the positive. The conversation Kevin Smith had with his colleague illustrates the bubble-like mindset that many in Hollywood seem to adopt. Smith was reassured that everything was fine and that he should focus on the positive coverage the show was receiving from media within their circle. Essentially, Smith was advised to ignore the criticism from the core audience, the very people for whom the show was supposedly created, and instead take comfort in the praise coming from within the industry, a sentiment echoed by Amandla Stenberg. What we see here is a shared mentality, one where negative reactions are brushed aside, often attributed to a small politically motivated group rather than recognized as genuine feedback from fans. In the case of The Acolyte, Stenberg dismisses the idea that the wider Star Wars audience rejected the show, instead blaming the ultra-conservative alt-right for amplifying negativity through algorithms. However, this explanation doesn't align with the facts. After all, The Acolyte wasn't cancelled because of a political backlash, it was due to low viewership. Yet this is the narrative inside the bubble, a way of coping with the fact that projects centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion (DI) sometimes fail to resonate with mainstream audiences. To her credit, Stenberg does show some self-awareness. She acknowledges that she's in a bubble, even if she believes others are also trapped in their own echo chambers. This recognition is an important step toward understanding how external factors may not be solely responsible for the division in public opinion. While she hasn't used her platform to tell fans how to vote, there's hope that one day she might look beyond algorithms and see the deeper forces at play in shaping the cultural divide. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of Amandla Stenberg's insights on the cancellation of The Acolyte. What do you think about her perspective on Hollywood's echo chambers and the criticisms surrounding the show? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications on our latest content. Until next time, keep questioning the narratives and stay engaged.